It's no secret that negative things going on in our personal lives can impact our performance at work. No matter how hard we may try to not let this happen, it's almost impossible to avoid. Hi, I'm Alicia Butler-Pierre. Crises in our personal relationships can manifest in sleep deprivation, lack of focus or energy, unexplained absences, and much more at work. As owners and/or operators of smaller businesses, we may not be able to offer the employee assistance programs to our team members that our larger corporate counterparts can. But what if I told you there's a free app you can offer to your teams to repair cracks in their personal relationships? Yep, you heard that right. An app to teach people how to better love their partners. This matters because when your team members are in healthier, happier relationships, it will positively impact their work performance. Collectively, better team performance leads to overall improvements in the way your business operates. Now that's game-changing. As Jackie DeShannon sang, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. This is season 14, episode 180. Let's start the show.
Welcome to Business Infrastructure, the podcast about curing back office blues of fast-growing businesses. If you're a business owner or operator looking for practical tips and solutions to scaling your business in a sustainable manner, you're in the right place. Now here's your hostess, Alicia Butler-Pierre.
Having a tough time trying to explain ideas over a video conference? Try the ThinkSmart whiteboard. It's the fastest whiteboard software in the world and allows you to upload flowcharts and write on them while your colleagues are watching remotely. Call us today for a free demo. The number is 1-866-584-6804 or visit us online at getmytablet.com. Now that's smart. Think smart. This episode is brought to you by Equilibria Incorporated, the company behind this podcast, where we design scale-ready business infrastructure for fast-growing small businesses. It's hard to believe it, but season 14 is soon coming to a close, everybody. Gosh, we've learned some impressive things from our guests this season, what they're doing with certain game-changing technologies to just completely revolutionize the way their companies are operating. And joining us today in Tampa, Florida, is another special guest, Tal Zlotnitsky. Tal is a serial entrepreneur, social activist, angel investor, lover of baseball, and most recently, the founder and CEO of Our.Love, a unique love and relationship wellness tech startup. Oh, that sounds interesting, doesn't it? He's going to tell us all about Our.Love, as well as how he and his team are using Figma, a technology that's assisting them in designing their app. Tal, welcome to the show. I'm glad we were able to kind of work through some behind the scenes technical glitches to make this interview happen. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
And, I was doing my research on you, and just to let listeners know how we got connected, we originally connected on LinkedIn. And as fate would have it, we happened to have a guest opening. And when I read about what you're doing with your latest venture, I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds so interesting. And it's so different and unique. And of course, let's make this happen. You have quite the story. And it sounds like it all begins in Israel, right?
It does. I was born in Israel. And at the time, we're talking 1973, Israel was just emerging out of a war. And it was a third world country. This is well before the internet revolution, well before the wave of Russian immigration into Israel in the 1990s, which had a lot to do with Israel becoming a mecca for innovation. And I had the good fortune of growing up in a home where my father was an internationalist, and so we traveled the world, and so I got a chance to see what was out there. And when I was 12 years old, my parents moved to the United States, and I came along, and so here I am.
Here you are, and what you have accomplished. Now, I know this from listening to your own podcast. I know a little bit more about your backstory and how you were kind of like a famous big famous kid back in Israel. You were a big deal. And then you came here into the United States and
That is right.
I had to start over, right?
It was
So,
rough. Yeah. I was a singer in Israel and I actually had a record when I was young. And several of my songs,
wow.
by the way, became those kinds of songs that every child knows. So it's kind of wild how, some of what I did as a young child is still part of Israeli culture, over 40 years later.
Wow.
But it is absolutely true. And it wasn't quite a joyous experience as a 12-year-old coming to the United States from a place where at least I was known, right? So I'd walk the streets and my face was recognized. And I was, as you might imagine, a pretty popular kid because of that. Came to the US not speaking the language, being small of stature with a name that could be mispronounced Tal. It wasn't the best. I'll say that. It wasn't the best. But you know what? It taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about resilience. And it also taught me that there are plenty of really, really kind people in the world, even as there are, of course, some people that are going to kick you when you're down. There are plenty of people that will try to give you a hand.
Sure. And you went on to, obviously you went through the school system here in the US, you went on to college, and over the past 30 years, you've had 5 super successful companies. I mean, that span media, payments, the payments industry. And I think I also read about
Mobile parking.
Mobile parking. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah,
Trailblazer.
it's been a ride. It's been a ride. My very first business venture was a colossal failure. It was as an 18-year-old college freshman, and I was involved in a college pro painters franchise. It was one of those things where you hire college kids to paint your homes. I was privileged enough to get a franchise. I did the training, I prepared for it. What I didn't take into consideration, or at least what the program didn't tell me, was how little my college kid colleagues who were painting cared about the quality of their work. And I really struggled to sell poor quality. So when I actually got to see the quality of the work we were producing out there, my ability to sell dropped like a stone into the bottom of the ocean. And I ended up at some point in the summer terminating my staff, all of it, and painting by myself the rest of the way. And the summer ended somewhat unceremoniously when I quite literally blew up, pouring gasoline into a power washer and forgetting to turn it off.
Oh my gosh.
Started a 25-foot bonfire of the deck of a client and needed to be helicoptered to the hospital. So you would have thought after that,
oh my gosh,
that I'd stay away from business. But you know what? Once again, it taught me a lot. It's obviously hindsight speaking, because I think it was about 3 months after that before I actually had the energy to get out of bed again. I was so depressed. But I learned a lot about doing your homework before you get into a business. Don't just assume that just because something seems a certain way that it's going to play out that way. Do your homework, be prepared. And that's a big, big lesson that I took away from that. And I'm applying it at Our.Love.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because you're right. It's very easy to kind of get caught up in especially when we think things are more glamorous and oh, I'm going to make so much money. But if you don't understand the rigor, the behind the scenes stuff, right, that goes on, that operational work that's taken place in order to achieve that level of success, you can definitely be in for a very rude awakening. And that's actually what we focus on here on this show, is what's going on in that back office, right? Like we see the app, Our.Love, which we're definitely going to get into, but what's going on behind the scenes to make an app like that even possible. Now, I read also about your story that prior to starting Our.Love, you walked away. You were founder and CEO of I Control Data, which was a B2B payments company that's backed by Goldman Sachs, as well as some other investors. What made you walk away and decide to start a new business venture during COVID?
Terrific question. So first, I'd say that I'm very proud of the work that I Control does, and it is still a terrific company, and I still own equity in the business, and I'm I have tremendous affinity for the team over there that's done such a great job. I chose to leave because actually COVID was a wake-up call. I'm sure I'm not alone. I say that the experience of COVID made me reflect on my life, and I was also going through a divorce, and I had a child, one of my 3, that was experiencing some serious health issues, and the company struggled. COVID was a real punch in the face. And, while I would, of course, not leave the company while it was down, and I did not, I stayed through a restructuring in a period of time to allow my COO, who had tremendous background as a president and CEO of Safeway.com, be prepared to take over. But the experience of going through that simply woke in me a desire to have a greater impact on the world and serve whatever purpose there is for me that God has in any event. I don't want to get into religion. Some people are not into that, but I felt very strongly that there was a greater calling for me. And I chose to walk away from iControl, which I loved, and the team over there, and start something different. And remarkably, my failure in my own relationships is what actually brought me to the idea that technology is not being leveraged properly to help people in relationships. Technology is now being leveraged very well to help people find love, but not keep it. And it felt like a great opportunity and a need that the marketplace, I thought, would respond to if it was filled properly.
Thank you for sharing that, because me, before, as I was reading your story and I was making this assertion that, well, because of COVID, and to your point, it was a wake-up call for so many of us, and it really made us focus on what really matters and what's really important. But I was thinking, well, I wonder if he did that because of everything that was going on in the world. But it sounds like it was a combination of that, as well as some personal things that you were experiencing as well. Was this an idea that you always kind of had maybe percolating in the back of your head, Tal? And then, COVID just kind of presented the perfect opportunity to just kind of go for it and make that idea actually come into fruition?
So interestingly, a decade earlier, right before I started iControl and it just sold current companies to Hudson News, I was dabbling in other potential opportunities. And it so happened at the time that my wife and I attended a weekend seminar from a group called the Relational Life Institute. Terry Real is a well-known therapist, and it was a group led by a disciple of his. And it was a great experience. And I actually did begin to think of the possibility of maybe, at the time, I wasn't thinking about it as software. I was thinking, wow, maybe I could help this business grow. And I actually kicked the tires on it. I ultimately decided to go into other areas and started iControl Mobile, which was a mobile parking company, one of the very first in the country, which we then ended up selling to Ringo. Now that's part of Park Mobile, and starting iControl Data, the payments company. So I had some thoughts there, but I'd say that in truth, what really brought me to start Our.Love was reflecting on why my relationship failed. And a big takeaway that I had, and I give some credit to my therapist because he gave me a lot to think about in that respect, is that there was not awareness on my part, nor my spouse's part, I would say, to our relational account well-being. We've heard the term relational bank account, but for some reason, we still tend to think of it more as a figment of someone's imagination as opposed to something tangible.
I know. It was just starting to get good, right? Well, there's more where that came from. To listen to the full interview, be sure to click the link in the description box below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell so that you'll know when our next episode drops. Until then, keep operating smoothly.
Join us next week for another episode of Business Infrastructure with Alicia Butler-Pierre.